Dance, dance, do the safety dance. Let's go! What is up, Bengals fam? It's your boy Mike, coming back at you with another Who Daily. We are right in the kind of lull period between the flurry of the opening of free agency, winding down into the draft. Right now, the Bengals have essentially filled out their roster. They're going to make another signing or two, and there's been a lot of talk about who that's going to be. I think they're looking at two things. They're looking at signing a starter level number 3 safety. They like to keep 3 starter level safeties on their team. Number 2, I think they're still gonna try to sign at least one, probably a couple veteran cornerbacks. The question is, how much money are they going to throw at those two things? They'll probably fill out the roster as well with some depth level defensive linemen, so edge players and defensive interior. But their starting roster is essentially filled out, barring like a Ravens levels of injuries from last year or Bengals levels of injuries from the year before. They're going to have pretty good starting lineup. Not a lot of holes, not a lot of positions up for competition in camp. Going into and that's really what you want coming off of a Super Bowl run. Go into the next season's camp with essentially the same roster, or as close to the same roster as you can get. Just close down all of those competitions, so you pretty much know what you're going into the season with, something Joe Burrow's never had. In fact, this is going to be Joe Burrow's first full off season where he's actually able to practice with the team and install Zach Taylor's playbook. Think about that. They went to the Super Bowl without Joe Burrow having an offseason pretty much ever. Remember, when he first came into the league, there was the COVID shutdown season. They didn't have a true offseason where they could install. So the Bengals came in with a new coach and new quarterback and didn't get to install really any kind of offense in their offseason because of COVID. And then his second year, he was hurt for a majority of the offseason. He did participate, but it wasn't a full offseason. This is going to be his first one. But I want to take a look at some of the options and these may sound a little far-fetched, especially if you're an old-school Bengals fan, thinking like this late in free agency, the Bengals making a big-ish signing. 2 guys I want you guys to, obviously, you've been hearing me talking about Steven Nelson. That's still on the table, right? Like, the Bengals are still looking at upgrading from Eli Apple, so that includes Steven Nelson, that includes Stephon Gilmore, that include that's about it. There are a couple others they may be looking at, but Stephon Gilmore's name still being thrown around. But one place I'm seeing a lot of smoke, and where it could actually be fire, is with Tyrann Mathieu coming in, and essentially, I think if they sign Tyrann Mathieu, he's essentially going to take Von Bell's place and bump Von Bell to the number 3 safety role, which is basically what Ricardo Allen was doing last year. But if they do that, I think Lou Anarumo will install lots of packages and looks, getting all 3 of these safeties onto the field at the same time. So the reason I say Tyrann Mathieu, lots of things make sense here. Tyrann Mathieu saw firsthand twice last year how good the Bengals offense is and how good their defense is, and being able to adjust and shut down his quarterback last year in Patrick Mahomes. So he was on the field twice and saw that stuff. He went to LSU, obviously, not anywhere near around the time that the LSU players on the Bengals roster now were there, but there is a program connection there, and that's still very important to a lot of football players. If you don't believe me, just ask the old dads in your hometown about how they feel about the guys playing on the local football team, the high school football team. They still love it. They still feel a connection. They can still shoot the shit with them. It's being reported that it's essentially, with Tyrann Mathieu, it's down to 2 teams. It's the Steelers and the Bengals. And if this was 5 years ago, there wouldn't be a question. Like, the Bengals fans wouldn't even be getting their hopes up for Tyrann Mathieu, right? Well, it's a totally different story. Here's what Tyrann Mathieu had to say about Joe Burrow in an interview recently. He says, "I knew his mental makeup, but to be on the field with him and experience it in real time, it makes you experience it more. He doesn't flinch. You got to remember, both of the times we played them, we were up. The first time we played them, we were up 21-7. Then the second time we played them, we were up 21-3. That's championship composure." So he said publicly he's looking for a team that can compete. He just admitted he watched this team. He knows it can compete. Playing against them, he could feel the the championship caliber of that roster. And he's looking for he's also been quoted as looking for a locker room full of leaders and championship level players. So between the two rosters, between the Steelers roster, the Bengals roster, between Joe Burrow and Mitch Trubisky, I think it's looking pretty good if the Bengals really do want to get a deal done, and they're close and they're close on money, and they want to bring Tyrann Mathieu in. That could actually happen, guys. Now, I don't get my hopes up. You know me. I'm a realistic Bengals fan. I don't get my hopes up, but this seems like something that has smoke that could actually have some fire behind it. And if they bring Tyrann Mathieu in, what that does is it allows them to. So essentially, if they were to bring Tyrann Mathieu in, Tyrann Mathieu's 29 years old, right? Safeties in this league can play into their 33, 34-year-old season if they're good like Tyrann Mathieu is. So what you could be looking at is a situation where they get Tyrann Mathieu on a 2 or 3 year contract, and they're able to let go of Von Bell and then use that money to re-sign Jesse Bates next year. So that's a kind of a. Now, they're going to still be working on a contract with Jesse Bates, by the way. They're still going to be. I think the Bengals still want Jesse Bates to be their long-term free safety. I told you why that's going to be difficult for them and has been difficult for them in yesterday's episode, or I don't know, it was a recent episode. I told you about Jesse Bates' agent is the same as Deshaun Watson's. And what are you hearing all the time about Deshaun Watson? It's how much guaranteed money his agent got him. The Bengals don't typically do that. If Jesse Bates goes out there and shows out next season, they'll do it. They pay their top players. But remember this: as much as we love Jesse Bates, he's never made a Pro Bowl. He's never been All Pro. There's an argument to be said. Maybe he would have made it. He's never put up the kind of raw from a statistical standpoint, from a grading standpoint, from just the dumb vanity stats like making Pro Bowls. He doesn't have any of that stuff on his resume. So I know he sees himself and his agent sees himself as a top safety. I don't know if the Bengals see him as a top safety, but I do think they want to bring him back. So I think all this news about the safeties is really interesting. I think that their biggest hole though still remains at that outside corner and replacing Eli Apple, something Tyrann Mathieu cannot do. So I'll keep my ear to the ground. We'll keep looking to see if they go any harder at Stephon Gilmore or any of these other corners that could come in and upgrade and maybe make it so they don't have to rely on Eli Apple as much. It also would open up their possibilities of drafting just BPA at pick 31, right? If it's Louis Cine, the safety out of Georgia, who I think is going to be a star. If he slides down there, they can pick him. If he's not there and it's Andrew Booth that slides down because of the surgery he had. By the way, he had a hernia surgery after his pro day. If he slides down because of that, then the Bengals can take him. If it's Trevor Penning that for some reason slides down, if it's Devontae White, whoever it is, they can sit there and say whichever one of these guys is going to slide down through the first round, we can pick him and be happy about it and just go smiling after day one, saying we got the best player we could have gotten. That's the strategy, though. I think that's what they're looking at doing. Any of these moves would be great, honestly. They have the money to do it. It's not going to blow the bank. They've already rolled over the cap savings they need to roll over, so it's all gravy. I'll keep my ear to the ground. You'll hear it here first. Keep tuning in every day to Who Daily. Weekdays, Monday through Friday, varying times, but and we do mock drafts on Friday. So hit that like and subscribe. Put the bell on. Make sure you get the notification when my videos come out. Be the first one to like and comment. But until next time, Bengals fam, I've been Mike. This has been Who Daily. See ya!